Very good. Any other? Ms. Lopez.
I wasn't expecting to share with you, but I feel like a mother, like a grandma, and like a community member really active in my community. I feel like it's a big difference between cookies and and guns. You know, everybody's had the right to choose whatever they choose, but it's a big difference. It's a big difference. And I feel like this is the time to do something about it. And not because the government didn't sign last time, doesn't mean it's not the right time now. And I'm so happy to support this bill.
Thank you very much. This is clearly a very emotional issue. So you may be able to answer this question, Mr. Santiago, given your other bill. The question of long guns being used in crimes, would you like to answer that or have one of your witnesses answer it?
Certainly I can answer, because when we started taking a look at it, if I'm not mistaken, over the last, I think, what is it, 140-something occurrences, I think almost half of them were long guns.
Excuse me, 140?
I think it's 100. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think it's close to about 143 victims. I mean, guns used, I think half of them, I think 72.
Gun used when, I mean, there's a lot more crimes than 143 in California. Could be a little more specific?
Yes, and actually, you know, I'll hand it over to the Brady campaign. She's saying
Okay,
she'd like to
that'd be good.
Yeah, we have found from the Department of Justice that nearly half the guns that are recovered, crime guns recovered that are traced, are long guns. So long guns are being used more and more in crime in California. Also with the Armed Prohibited Person System program, they're finding that half the guns recovered are long guns. So those are guns in the hands of prohibited persons.
And for the record, the other witness is shaking his head. So we'll just leave it at that. Let's see, if there are no other questions, you may close, Mr. Santiago.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay. So I'll make my comments here. First of all, could we have a motion? I don't think we've had one yet. Moved by Mr. Jones-Sawyer, second by Ms. Lopez. A couple of things here. First of all, we are concerned about car violence. We may not call it that, but the rate, when I was a kid in the 50s, we had 40,000 deaths a year from automobiles. We now have, I don't know, 6, 7 times the number of cars, 10 times the number of car miles, and only 36,000 deaths. So we have per mile driven, driven that rate down by about a factor of 10. That's not the case with guns. We are talking about, with these weapons, them used being in an assault situation where people are going after multiple people. So this is very different from the situation you mentioned, knives versus guns. I don't know about your statistics. We could. Okay, good. But the point is, we're not worried about knives when you're going after a theater full of people. You'll get 1 or 2, perhaps. You might kill 1 or 2 people, but you're not going to get a large number. So that's why the concentration is here. There is one concern that I have, and we'll need to talk to the authors of this bill as well as the other bill, and that is the idea by requiring registration. And I can admit most people aren't going to know that they have to register their gun. Are we creating criminals? I think this is very real. The other thing is that it costs a lot of money to get out the message so that you could have effective registration. And I'm willing to bet we don't have it. So I think that's something that the opposition brought up that is very real, and that the authors of both of these bills have to take a look at. And without a major campaign, which is going to cost money, this is a big issue, and frankly it needs to be taken up as a budget issue as well, or I'm sure the governor will veto it, because he does not like unfunded programs. So this is an issue that's been brought up. We have to think about this very carefully. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we should only do it if we have the ability to really let people know. The other issue is brought up is that old hunting rifles that have detachable magazines would be And they well could, this could be an issue there. So we need to think about all of these things. I will ask the special agent, if you do not have a detachable magazine and you've got a hunting rifle, how difficult is it to load the magazine?
Well, for example, generally they're top fed, so it's going to be as easy as the manufacturer can create it because they want their guns to be sold in that fashion. There are bolt action weapons, there are break top weapons that are not necessarily semi-automatic, but there's a variety of ways to load a magazine. If you stick to this world where it's a semi-automatic, generally it's probably going to be top fed. That would be the most common method. You may have, when you get into a detachable, call it an older variant, there might have a 3 to 5 round detachable magazine. Those are out there as well. Okay.
So you'd have to bring the bolt back, insert the ammunition from the top.
On some of the versions, sir, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I will then ask, what is the motion? The motion is due pass to appropriations. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Quirk?
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Melendez? No. Melendez, no. Jones Sawyer?
Aye.
Jones Sawyer, aye. Lackey? No. Lackey, no. Lopez? Aye. Lopez, aye. Lowe? Santiago? Aye. Santiago, aye.
The bill passes 4-2. Yes, Mr. Santiago.
Yeah, I just want to clear up one item that I didn't respond well on. And we were looking at different sets of data. The data that I was looking at was that over the last 3 decades in mass shootings, out of the 143 weapons recovered, it was 72 that were actually long guns. And I apologize for not having that in front of me when I was asked.
That's fine. Mr. Gibson, thank you for being so patient. You've been waiting for about an hour now. I really appreciate it. Item number 6, AB 1673, Mr. Gibson.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. I would like to thank the chair and the committee for working with us on this bill. I am in the process of amending the definition of this bill to make them more precise, and will continue to work with the Department of Justice and relevant stakeholders to improve the language of this bill. AB 1673 seeks to amend the definition of firearms to ensure that law enforcement is better able to track the sale of critical gun parts and keep them out of the hands of people who pose threat to our public safety. The definition of a firearm was created in the Gun Control Act of 1968, where it was defined as a frame or receiver of any weapon. A lower receiver or frame is found in every firearm, from a pistol to a semi-automatic rifle, and requires a background check and a serial number. All guns that are operational and can fire bullets have a receiver. It seems to me every time we look around, there is another story of a deadly shooting where the perpetrator was able to obtain dangerous weapons by using loopholes in the law. These loopholes include the ability to purchase 80% lower receiver, where the usage of these parts results in a crime, but obtaining these parts is not regulated. An 80% lower receiver is an untraceable underscore untraceable receiver that is not made to completion, but can be easily altered to make fully completed lower receiver, which can be used to create a fully functional firearm that will seek to do mass destruction. Let me pause there for a moment and ask the agent if he can show us what an uncompleted receiver looks like.
Yes, Mr. Special Agent, please explain what a receiver is, how it fits into the gun, and please go ahead.
Okay, so these are basically two versions. There's a metal version, and the black one here is a polymer or plastic style frame or unfinished receiver. This particular metal one here is aluminum.
What is a receiver? How does it fit into the gun?
So this is basically the receiver is what holds the trigger in this weapon system and a lot of the other moving parts, the action and most of the action parts. This is what everything is ultimately attached to. It's like the frame of a car.
All right, and that's a finished one?
This is almost all the way to completion. The ones in the guns here that are with the chamber flags, those have had a few extra holes drilled out. But this is, under federal law, this is actually a firearm at this level. It was...
Okay, so show us the... Okay, go ahead.
Here's the next step. After it comes in the mail to someone like this, UPS or FedEx, someone would have potentially a fixture like this. Sometimes they're called a jig. You basically have...
Perhaps we could just, if you could compare the unfinished versus the finished.
Sure. So this one here, the magazine well has been opened up. That's where the magazine would ultimately go in this area here. This particular one, it's not been opened up. There's no area here to put the fire control or the trigger and the hammer and so forth in. These weapons on the table here have obviously all been opened up, and they're true firearms, whether or not they had a barrel attached and so forth. This one here would require a background check if it was going to be tried to transfer through a store and so forth. This, you can get as many as you want.
Okay, and then show us then how you would machine the one that's in your right hand.
So part of the process, it can either happen in a CNC machine, if it's a metal one.
CNC is...
CNC, I'm not going to be able to...
It's a common machine shop tool. Do people have it in their homes, or is this strictly machine shop?
Mainly a machine shop. CNCs are basically used to using computer programs and basically high-pressure water. They're used to cut out the metal using a computer program. I've done that in the course of an investigation, and it took about 12 minutes to go from this to this.
So, okay, so you're saying that essentially key components of a gun, you could buy all the separate components legally, except for the receiver, which has the trigger, etc., and then you can buy on the open market something which you could machine in 12 minutes and then assemble a gun with no serial number, no traceability.
Effectively, yes. You're going to end up then having to do maybe 10 minutes worth of drilling to drill out the side holes, and then you could start dropping in the small parts for the lower receiver kit.
Okay. Thank you very much, Officer.
Thank you very much, Agent. By including 80% lower receiver in the definition of the firearm, we are able to regulate the creation of ghost guns. So if people are making guns at home or buying the parts online, law enforcement can trace the guns in the event of a crime. This change will help the Department of Justice better trace the sale of these important gun parts and deny sale to those with known history of violence. This measure will also update the state law to ensure that we stay current with new technology advancements, creating more access to potentially dangerous gun parts. Here with me to provide supporting testimonies are members of the Brady campaign who will introduce themselves, and also the Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence.
Before we start, so the amendment, so right now, the committee has looked at the language Mr. Gibson has, and we have a concern that the definition of a part, the receiver, is it too vague, and we have to get that changed. I'm going to suggest that to the members of the committee who support this bill that we go forward with this at this time so that we can eventually get good language. However, I reserve my vote on the floor until we have that language, and I will say that to the rest of the committee. So I think now we've defined that without this, someone can assemble a gun, and in 10 minutes they can buy that one key. They can buy that one key part. In 10 minutes, they can have a gun that's untraceable. We do need to fix that definition. So I think that's a pretty good summary of where we are on the bill. I'd like to hear from the Brady campaign and the law folks as well.
Yeah. Amanda Wilcox, again, with the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence, California chapters. And we share your concern about the definition. I mean, that's the key point. When is something a piece of metal? When is it a lower receiver? And smarter people than me hopefully will be able to figure that out. What I want to make the point today is the need for this. And first of all, for the Brady Campaign, a priority for us. We do not advocate bans on firearms, by the way, but our priority is that we want background checks for every gun sale, and we want a record of those guns so that they can be traced if they're used in crime, and also people can be disarmed if subsequently they become prohibited. And so this is the new way that the gun interests are finding to avoid background checks and records. Therefore, we need to deal with this problem. The United States Government Accountability Office has indicated in a recent report that unfinished receivers and these that's sold with parts to make assault weapons is kind of the new complicating factor in their efforts to fight the firearm trafficking into Mexico. Attorney General Schneiderman of New York has indicated that ghost guns, which is another name for these kind of guns built with unfinished receivers, are the new frontier of illegal trafficking. We know that in Santa Monica, the shooter there, John Sawari, had a mental health prohibition, therefore could not pass a background check. So over the internet, he was able to buy an unfinished receiver, which right now is legal under current law, and he assembled a bullet button type weapon, I believe, and used it in that shooting, killing 5 people. My understanding is that unfinished receivers generally cost between $60 to $250. $60 is the low end, and takes 1 to 7 hours to assemble a weapon. And then finally, just as an example, there is a person who sells unfinished receivers over the internet and in a store in Oceanside, California, and he sells these, people buy them, it's stated, because they don't have to have a background check and there's no record. And that is completely legal right now under the law. And so this is obviously, and in Sacramento, and probably many of you saw this report by the Sacramento Bee. I actually saw the press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Eastern District, Sacramento, where they found 8 men. Well, I guess they're charged. I don't know. I think they're guilty. At any rate, won't take your time on that, but they found that they were selling many guns illegally, and a very large number of them, of course, were built from 80% receivers. So again, this is a way to avoid background checks and records. These are guns that are increasingly found in crime. With lower receivers, you can make assault weapons, bullet button weapons, and we need to deal with this problem.
Great. You have about a minute.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ari Freilich again for the Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. Our friends in the gun lobby will often tell you that it is feckless and naive, maybe irritating, to try to enact gun laws to keep guns out of dangerous hands, because criminals will always find a way to acquire a weapon. But I think it behooves us to follow up and inquire, well, how do they always get that weapon? because the illegal black market isn't some mystical place out there. It's, firearms do not present some magical exception to the laws of police work and justice and common sense. Dangerous people and the traffickers who supply them exploit specific gaps and loopholes in our law to gain access to weapons, and we know this is one of them. I invite you to check out websites right now like AresArmor.com, which on its homepage markets unfinished receivers, partially completed receivers, with the promise that anyone can, quote, build a gun that is unserialized, no registration, 100% legal. This is what a loophole looks like. A devastating 2013 shooting spree in California highlighted the need for this legislation when a dangerously mentally ill gunman who had failed a background check to purchase a firearm was nonetheless able to lawfully acquire an unfinished receiver and assemble an assault rifle with parts ordered cheaply online. The shooter used that home-built assault weapon to murder 5 people and shoot bullets into the bodies of 4 other human beings in a shooting spree around the campus of Santa Monica Community College. This bill would help stem the flow of these firearms in the illegal black market and prevent dangerous individuals from assembling and acquiring homemade deadly weapons.
Thank you very much. All right. Other witnesses in support?
Pam Gerizzo, Sacramento chapter of the Brady Campaign, asking for your support. Thank you.
Mimi Budd, Sacramento County Brady Campaign, asking for your support. Thank you.
Edlin Patterson, Grass Valley Brady Campaign. I'd appreciate your support.
Deborah Worth, Nevada County Brady Campaign, asking for support.
Diane Summer, Sacramento Brady Campaign. I urge your support.
Patty Hyatt from California Civil Liberties Advocacy. Liberty includes security. We support.
Thank you.
And strong support.
Mike Garrett, Rancho Murrieta, Sacramento Brady Campaign. I urge your support.
Elise Furman, Sacramento Brady Campaign, support.
Griffin Dix, Oakland Brady Campaign Chapter, support. I want to make sure you know that the firearm laws that California has been passing are working very well, and criminals won't.
If you could just say whether you're in support or opposition.
Just California has cut its gun death rate by 58% in the last 25 years, double the rate of reduction in the rest of the country.
Thank you.
Reese Donaldson, Elk Grove, and also the Sacramento Brady Campaign, strongly support.
Thank you. All right. Now we'll hear witnesses in opposition. Okay, so a total of 4 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Craig DeLuz. I'm here on behalf of the Firearms Policy Coalition in opposition. Quite simply put, AB 1673 defines items as firearms that are not firearms. In fact, the term that is used specifically in here has to do with the term can be readily converted. And I'll give you an example. This here is a block of aluminum. The only thing that separates this from being a firearm and that item over there is a CNC machine and the experience to know how to use it. By definition, it is readily convertible, and I would ask the author, where would you like us to put the serial number? Also, this is an unfinished lower receiver for an AK-47. As you can see, with the exception of some holes and divots, it's not dissimilar from a piece of sheet metal that one would pick up at Lowe's, pick up at Ace Hardware, or would pick up at Home Depot. So I would ask the author, are we going to have stations at every one of these hardware stores and require them to actually serialize this, because this is in fact readily convertible. Finally, I distributed around an example. This is a blog post that I share with each and every one of your staff members. This is an example of an individual who took a shovel and converted it into an AK-47. As you can see, he didn't use sophisticated tools. He simply used the resources that were available to him, thus rendering it readily convertible. I would ask the author once again, where would you like us on the shovel to put the serial number? This bill is grotesquely vague. And I believe that even the language that is being proposed to replace it is additionally vague. In fact, your own consultant said that it is so vague that it might be rendered by the courts void for vagueness. All of that aside, the idea that if someone is going to go and commit a crime, they're going to manufacture a weapon, that they are going to put all of the ugly features that you deem to be assaulty or assault weapon features and put them on the firearm, and then, oh, by the way, we're going to go get a serial number, is in fact ludicrous. I think the fact that this bill in and of itself is so vague, and I think that the proposed language is so vague, that it would be tantamount to legislative, it would be a very bad idea, and I think set very bad precedent for this committee to pass a bill out of committee that is so poorly written and violates the laws of Californians. Thank you.
Okay, you have about a minute and a half.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Sam Paredes, Executive Director of Gun Owners of California, and I want to thank my colleague here for pointing out some of these things. CNC means computer numerically controlled machine. The average cost is between $150,000 and $300,000, and they are invested on and purchased by machine shops. There's no such thing as a $15,000 CNC machine. They don't exist, number one. Number two, this could very readily be converted into a legal receiver without all of the cosmetic contours. It can still look like this, but as long as somebody does all of the holes and the pins and everything, it can be a fully functioning firearm, which is legal under federal law, has been since 1968. Legal here in the state of California. The firearms that have been presented as being crime guns have not, in all of the hearings and press conferences that I've been to, they've always been explained that they were confiscated. I don't recall any of them saying that this was used in the commission of a crime. I guess you can argue that the Santa Monica one potentially was, but there's still a lot of question about that. And in fact, earlier it was pointed out that half of the guns that are that are crime guns in the state of California, those that are put into the APHIS system, in fact, those guns, most of them have never been used in the commission of a crime. They were for some reason added, whether they were lost or stolen, whether they were picked up at somebody's home when they went to investigate some other issue. They were put into the system and they don't come out. So those are not crime guns. The number still is reflected in the Attorney General's report that only 14 crimes that she can account for were committed in 2015 using any sort of long guns. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, others in opposition?
Douglas Sapulpa, Marysville, strongly opposed.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Edward International Rifle Association, I share the chairman's vagueness concerns. We oppose the bill.
My name is Mario Cunhal from Yuba County. I request that you vote no on this bill.
Ken Greenwood, Placerville, oppose this bill, and some people actually enjoy making things, if you will. I have several clients who have actually made these, and it's a pride of ownership, if you will.
Okay.
Roy Griffith on behalf of California Rifle and Pistol Association, oppose.
Will Clark, Chico, California, downrange, we strongly oppose.
All right, I'm going to begin this with an apology to Mr. Gibson. Initially, I felt we could go forward. I'm just thinking now that we'd be better off looking at the definition and looking at the machinings required, holding in committee for another week, for another couple of weeks, just so we can work this out. Would that be okay with you, Mr. Gibson?
Well, Mr. Chair, I appreciate that. I think we can still move this bill out of committee. The intent is very, very clear as it relates to the 80% lower receiver. I want to answer a number of the
okay, go ahead.
concerns that was brought out a few moments ago that give rise to me addressing it.
Okay, go ahead. Would you want to address them now? I'd really like to hear what you have to say about the concerns that with the CNC machine, any block of metal can be turned into a lower receiver.
That is true. However, you can also purchase the incomplete receiver through the internet. As a matter of fact, my staff individual right here purchased it online for $65 and attempted to bring the uncompleted version of the Lord receiver into the building. Well, he was stopped by Capitol Security. What happens if, in fact, an individual working at a place purchase parts every single day or monthly and bring it into a building or place of work and assemble a gun? Are we okay with that? Are we okay with the individuals that what transpired in Santa Monica that ended and resulted in lives being lost? Are we okay with the fact that there's individuals that are manufacturing, that are looking at the law, that are taking loopholes in the law to their advantages and making guns of mass destruction, killing and taking innocent people's lives? Are we okay with the fact of individuals can take that block of metal today and find a 3D printer and produce a gun? Are we okay with that fact? I think the intent of the language is clear. I believe that it will still go through the legislative process, and amendments, in fact, will be taken in order to make this bill a better bill.